Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse cannot fail. Now, I'm not saying it's literally impossible for this movie to fail. No, the movie can still flop like crazy and undermine everyone's expectations. But what I mean by it cannot fail is that there's just a bit too much in the line for this movie to end up flopping. Actually, I think it's a lot more than many people truly realize, because it's not only for the sake of a character or a franchise, but for the sake of the entire medium of animation in itself. Because whether you like it or not, Into the Spider-Verse is one of the most influential and groundbreaking pieces of animation in modern times. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's take it back to the original real quick, as context is vital to understand the point I'm trying to make. Now, there will be no surprise here when I say that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was a really good movie. An amazing on-screen debut of one of the biggest modern legacy characters to date, and also arguably the mainstream introduction of this Brooklyn-raised successor to Peter Parker. The movie in itself originally gained traction through its unique art style shown in trailers, the introduction of on-screen Marvel multiversal shenanigans, and most importantly, just being a Spider-Man movie. Seeing as this film came out and held people over in the year break between Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home. However, even from the most diehard of Miles Morales fans, I don't think they expected this movie to be this good, mostly due to the fact that they were either working against the grain or operating in unknown territory entirely. Like, for one, animation has always been one of the more disrespected art forms, especially in the Western world, with carrying a mass amount of heavy biases and unfair stigmas about it being a children's genre. Even though it's not a genre, it's a medium. This has led to this easily stylized expression to be relegated as somewhat juvenile, and it automatically tarnishes the reputation of many great works because of it, meaning that even if the project was good, they would only be good for an animation. You then have the fact that Miles Morales himself is the focal point, and you can already see those complications with the Not My Spider-Man campaigns, especially for the majority out there who aren't familiar with the comics and weren't accustomed to the Miles Morales character for those past 7 years leading up to this movie. I mean, heck, even at the time, a quite sizable amount of comic readers weren't a fan of Miles Morales either, because he just wasn't Peter Parker. Predictions and expectations are just hard to grasp when you don't really have a basis to make those assumptions from, but come to find out, we don't get a good movie, we don't get a great movie, but a modern classic that not only revolutionized the way we view animated pieces, but revolutionized the limits at which animated pieces can push themselves. Because up until even now, there has been this disappointing trend with animated pieces trying to be hyper-realistic, instead of being more stylized, which is practically the backbone of the medium. Let's shift the focus to the sequel for a bit. From the looks of the trailers, it looks like they're upping everything that made the original great for this multiversal two-parter. It's even doing something that the comics haven't had the guts to stick to, and that's actually changing the Peter Parker status quo. Seriously, the comics like thrive off this man's pain. It's kind of crazy. Public expectations justifiably are through the roof, with another set of instant classics being expected to be added to the Miles Morales catalog. But say these movies don't do well. I'm not even talking purely box office wise, but if this movie is bad quality wise as well, I'll just say it's going to be hard for a piece that is already fighting an uphill battle. Like, even on the more milder side, Across the Spider-Verse is one of the handful of Marvel projects that are actually garnering mass hype due to high expectations. So if they were to just go on and be added to the recent list of Marvel project disappointments, I'm not saying it will be the end of Marvel movies, but it would definitely be a major tick on the ever-growing list of reasons to have Marvel resentment and superhero fatigue, a list that will just keep building and building until only the hardcore, stubborn fans will care about the property anymore. I am also so scared to see the narratives that may spew from this movie's potential failure, with movie-specific criticisms being used as representation to discredit the whole medium due to this franchise being a flagship for it. A select group of people were already being hypercritical of the film and being objectively wrong about it, just because they didn't want the best Spider-Man movie to not only be animated, but not be Peter Parker's. Not to mention the potential revisionist history that may spawn from this movie's lackluster performance, to try to say that the original wasn't great either, like sort of the reverse effect of what happened after No Way Home, with people saying that the Amazing Spider-Man movies weren't that bad after seeing Andrew Garfield's interpretation in the MCU, even though, yeah, they weren't good. As far as the Spider-Man mythos, I'm also afraid that if this little sample of the multiverse goes wrong, we will be stuck in the Peter Parker age for a lot longer. Alright, we aren't stupid. We know that a big advantage of the Spider multiverse is to get us a taste of these Spider variants to see which one of these the public connects with most, therefore potentially making spin-offs or providing them increased character focus in other releases. Just look at how well received Spider-Man Noir was in Into the Spider-Verse, to the point that that is a substantial reason as to him receiving a live-action adaptation with Prime Video, or Spider Gwen, who was supposed to get an actual spin-off from the Spider-Verse franchise. Look, I love Peter Parker, I really do, but other than the one Miles-based movie, he has pretty much been the only interpretation we have been given for the big screen, and for like 90% of Spider-Man related media beforehand. Which yeah, obviously, he is the original Spider-Man. Of course he will be covered primarily, because he is the safe and reliable option. But we are in a new age of media where taking those story leaps of faith, no pun intended, are more encouraged than ever before. There are hundreds of different Spider stories to be told, and for a company that is being outed as stale and repetitive, taking advantage is vital. But if the one other major story that's not Peter focused is a flop, I just don't want them to get cold feet moving on to other variations, is all I'm trying to say. I have every bit of trust in the development team that these projects are going to push the Spider franchise into new heights, but it is still good to be realistic and prepare ourselves as these cinematic challenges can and will happen. And that's kind of been the name of the game since these movies have been announced. The first film's release date has been pushed back not once, but twice due to complications involving the Big C virus, as well as production issues. Speaking of production issues, Spider-Verse has apparently been plagued by them. Many on-the-fly writing and structure changes have led to a bunch of reworked scenes, which has ultimately pushed the budget way over the $100 million checkmark compared to the $90 million budget of its predecessor. Structurally, as a movie itself, they will have a massive amount of problems in regards to the abundance of Spider people. The original just barely managed to pull off the multiple Spider people without being too overwhelming. However, it definitely was one of the weaker aspects of the movie, which it still ended up being good, don't get me wrong, but now we have infinitely more names and faces to care about. However, this may be subsided due to the fact that this is a two-parter. You then have the primary opposition to this movie, in that no matter how hard these sequels may try, they will always be the victim of the looming comparisons to its predecessor, especially since said predecessor is one of the greatest superhero films of all time. Obviously, this is going to put these upcoming sequels under mass scrutiny to live up to the hype of the original, which puts these films in a tough position, as you aren't only pressured by high-hoping fans, but handling a bit of nostalgia, which me bringing up nostalgia is practically my brand at this point. Across the Spider-Verse is seemingly escalating the stakes drastically, which is the best thing that this franchise can do at this point. And hopefully it ends up producing a high-quality piece in the end, amidst all of the chaos. Into the Spider-Verse has become such an integral part of the modern animation scene, and it's kind of insane in how unexpected this was. It started a conversation, and even inspired multiple other films to take those creative chances, including Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and The Bad Guys. And they seemingly are reaping the benefits due to this creative risk, as they both are seeing mass critical acclaim. It was just such a convincing piece for the character of Miles Morales, managing to have the vast majority being comfortable with someone taking the mantle of Spider-Man, which is virtually unheard of for any truly established legacy character, let alone the most popular Marvel creation of all time. It even had such a wide-ranging effect that they directly inspired the live-action Spider-Man film to an extent with No Way Home. It was just such an organized, disorganized film that makes it feel all over the place, but in a good way, as everything felt so purposeful too, making true use of an art form that has been highly misconstrued and mistreated over the years. It's just so crazy to think about that with every bit of success they garnered, it has quickly turned around and become their opposition moving forward as a franchise. If you guys made it this far, I would ask if you guys please like and subscribe to the channel. It only takes 2 seconds, but it would mean the world to me.